Donald Trump is at it again, insulting Jerome Powell, who runs the U.S. Central Bank, called the Federal Reserve. He called him a major loser in a Truth Social post on Monday, April 21st. And he also suggested that Powell was trying to help Joe Biden and then Kamala Harris win the 2024 election. Trump has said recently that Powell should be terminated, and he said, if I want him gone, he'll be gone real fast. Okay, let's get into this. So, first of all, I think it's really important to understand what the Federal Reserve is and does, what Jerome Powell, who he is and what he does, and then let's talk about whether Trump could actually fire him, because it's pretty complicated. All right, well, let's start simple. The Federal Reserve is the central bank of the United States, okay? Mostly what they do is they manage the money supply through interest rates, moving the interest rates up or down. So basically what that means is they have two basic functions. They can do easing, and what that means is lower interest rates. So it costs less, right? Money that you borrow, there's less interest attached to it, which usually leads to sort of people spending more money, right? If you can get an interest rate for a 1%, it's worth it. If it's 15%, might not be worth it. Or they can do tightening. Tightening is the opposite of loosening. Basically, they raise the interest rate, which makes less people willing to borrow and to spend. It usually is used to slow what the Fed views as an overheated economy, whereas easing is used to kind of boost up an economy that they view as sluggish. Just a couple examples. During the pandemic, for example, the Fed put interest rates at almost zero because no one was doing anything, no one was borrowing, no one was spending. And it was like, we have to do something to try to keep the economy going. Of late, the Fed has raised interest rates to 5.25% to 5.5% because of inflation fears. They're worried that inflation is going to go back up because of the tariff policies Donald Trump is putting in place, and so they're raising them, right? So they're tightening slightly after a period of significant easing. What is the Federal Reserve solving for? Well, first of all, it's an independent organization, okay? The head of the Federal Reserve, in this case Jerome Powell, is appointed by a president, but it's an independent organization. They're mostly solving, in truth, for stability, price stability, inflation staying relatively low, trying to keep as many people employed as possible. That's sort of what they're doing. And they aren't a political operation in any way, shape, or form. And yet, and I'll note, by the way, it's probably worth noting here that Donald Trump, in his first term as president, appointed Powell to the job as the head of the Federal Reserve. Joe Biden reappointed him in 2022, and he should, in theory, serve a 10-year term. Though he's not at the end of that yet. All right, so 5.25 to 5.5 in interest rate, Donald Trump thinks is too high. He wants the Fed to lower it because he wants the economy, he wants more people to be borrowing money, spending money, and he thinks that will offset some of the damage done by tariffs. Powell doesn't want to do that, or at least they haven't done it yet. So the Fed met in January and then again in March. Both of those times they had opportunities where they could have lowered rates. They chose not to. And Donald Trump is not happy about that. I'll read from his Truth Social post on Monday. Preemptive cuts in interest rates are being called for by many. With energy costs way down, food prices, including Biden's eggs disaster, substantially lower, and most other things trending down, there's virtually no inflation. With these costs trending so nicely downward, just what I predicted they would do, there can be almost no inflation, but there can be a slowing of the economy unless Mr. Too Late, he's referring to Powell, a major loser, lowers interest rates now. Europe has already lowered 7 times. Powell has always been too late, except when it came to the election period when he lowered in order to help sleepy Joe Biden, later Kamala, get elected. How did that work out? All right, so let me take a pause and say, I want you to subscribe to this channel. We are surging. We are over 66,000. I am marching ever upward because I'm an independent news creator. Independent from big media. It's just me making these videos, and independent in my political outlook. I am calling balls and strikes no matter what uniform the batter at the plate is wearing. I think that is critical now. I've spent 20 plus years in mainstream media, CNN, Washington Post. Now I'm doing this, and I need you to support. So hit that subscribe button. All right, so what we've established, the Fed is an independent organization. The President of the United States appoints the head of the Fed, Jerome Powell in this case, but the organization to date has functioned independently of political calculation. Donald Trump, like he is doing with so many things, is pushing on that front. He is suggesting that the Fed is in fact not nonpartisan or independent, that they work for him, and that they should be putting in place policies that he likes. And in this case, lowering the interest rate because he thinks there's no worry about long-term inflation. He and Jerome Powell disagree on that. Jerome Powell said last week he's worried about long-term inflation, medium-term inflation as well, and that the only reason Powell isn't doing it is because he doesn't want to cheer for and root for Donald Trump. He doesn't want Donald Trump to succeed. All of which gets us to this big question. Can Donald Trump fire Jerome Powell? No president has ever fired a Federal Reserve chairman. Not a Republican president, not a Democratic president. It's never happened before. When the term ends, they often appoint a new person, but they've never been fired before. Does that mean Trump can't fire Powell? That's a much more complicated question that actually, like so many questions these days, the Supreme Court is going to have a say on. Now, totally unrelated to this Jerome Powell, can Trump fire a Federal Reserve chairman, is a case that has been working its way up the courts and that the Supreme Court is now hearing about, can Donald Trump remove the boards of independent agencies? So there's two agencies. The one you might have heard of is the National Labor Relations Board. Trump got rid of all the people on that. Now, that is ostensibly an independent agency. It is a government agency, but an independent agency. When Trump got rid of those people, there was a lawsuit that says, you can't do this. It's an independent agency. Okay, that is making its way all the way up to the Supreme Court. If the Supreme Court rules, now again, the Federal Reserve is not mentioned in this case, but if the Supreme Court rules that Donald Trump as president has the ability and the right to fire people on an independent agency's board, there are those who believe that that would open the door to give him the modus operandi to fire Powell. Now, Powell has said, I don't think that's going to happen. He has said he is monitoring the Supreme Court case, but that's the situation. So the answer, can Donald Trump fire Jerome Powell today? Probably not. I mean, he could, but there'd be a massive lawsuit, and I think he would lose based on case law today. But if the Supreme Court rules that Donald Trump can fire boards at, for example, the National Labor Relations Board, an independent agency, if they rule, yes, Donald Trump can do this, that would open Pandora's box or open the door to the possibility that Trump could, in fact, terminate Jerome Powell. Now, should he terminate Jerome Powell? I mean, I would argue that would be crazy for him to do. The stock market, just based on Donald Trump's attacks on Jerome Powell over the weekend, is down. The dollar, the strength of the U.S. dollar, is down. I think if you got rid of the head of the independent central bank in the United States, it would add, if you thought the tariffs drove down the stock market and drove down the bond market, getting rid of the chief banker of the United States, because Donald Trump doesn't like him, would, I think, have a much more profound impact in a negative way on the stock market, on the bond market, on the dollar. I just think it would add even more uncertainty. It would be sort of like the tariffs, but on steroids. Would Donald Trump do that? I have no idea. What Donald Trump decides to do and not do is usually beyond me politically. As I said with the tariffs, it would be incredibly dumb to get rid of Jerome Powell, even if he could get rid of Jerome Powell. But Donald Trump has done many things that I have said were politically dumb. Some worked out for him, some didn't. So just because I think it's dumb doesn't mean he won't do it. And right now, I don't think he can do it. But watch that Supreme Court case and watch the markets. The markets are not reacting well to the idea, the unsettling idea of Trump being able to or even threatening to remove Jerome Powell. Jerome Powell will not just resign. He has said that repeatedly. So this is going to be yet another big fight that the Supreme Court is going to have a huge hand in deciding. All right, that's it for me today. As I said earlier, Please subscribe if you haven't already. Independent news creator, not beholden to any big company, not beholden to a billionaire, and not beholden to either party. Telling it how it is, calling balls and strikes no matter what uniform the batter at the plate is wearing. I think that matters now more than ever. Other things you can do. You can like this video and you can comment on this video. Like, just hit the thumbs up, comment, throw a thought in there. That helps my content get out to people who don't already subscribe to me and grow this channel, again, which is so important. As an independent news creator, I need to keep growing. So you can do that. And the last thing you can do is just take matters into your own hands and tell a few people about what I'm building here and why you think it's important. That means a ton to me. And I hope you just tell a few people today, this week. I make videos every single day, 2 a day, as well as do a live stream every Friday. So where I answer your questions. Thank you. If you're already a subscriber, thank you. If you become one today, thank you. If you tell people about it, double thank you. All right, everyone, take care.